The largest eco-terrorist in human history, Joe Biden, just got the Willow Project approved by federal courts. The Willow Project is a disastrous oil drilling project in Alaska that is estimated to produce 260 million metric tons of carbon emissions over the next 30 years. Woo! If I was a climate activist who pushed the idea of harm reduction by voting for Joe Biden, I would be embarrassed. Never forget how shameless progressive infiltrators like Emma Vigeland said that climate alone is enough reason to vote for Joe Biden. Delete your account. Other progressive climate groups like Sunrise Movement, who endorsed Jim Crow Joe because they had Trump derangement syndrome, are even calling Biden out in order to save face after endorsing him and leading young people off a cliff. Isn't it funny how the quote-unquote harm reduction candidate keeps getting sued by civil rights organizations, and then they rely on the right-wing judicial system to bail him out? Expect the same thing here, where Joe Biden is sued by peace activists for enabling the genocide of the Palestinians. I appreciate the effort, but going through our corrupt system to stop state violence and corruption is ineffective. We need a revolution. Israel has been getting their ass handed to them in the battle of public opinion. It seems like most people are not a big fan of bombing hospitals and refugee camps. Now we have billionaires teaming up in order to help shift the public opinion back in the favor of genocide. The capitalist class supporting war and genocide? Color me surprised. According to the news website Semaphore, who's seen the email, you have a new media campaign called Facts for Peace that is now collecting donations from billionaires so they can have a media propaganda campaign in support of Israel. The group called Facts for Peace is now doing propaganda for the terrorist country that is bombing hospitals and refugee camps. You have incubator babies that are being murdered, entire families being wiped out, kids being shot out of hospitals, but these people call themselves Facts for Peace? The capitalist class troll us in the most perverse ways possible. In an email where this group was soliciting donations, the founder of the organization said that public opinion will shift against Israel once people see all the Palestinian children and civilians that they are killing. Oh shit, they're about to realize that we're supporting a terrorist state. This is why Brian Sternlicht stressed the importance of them getting ahead of the narrative. Now do you guys see why the United States is the most propagandized country? Capitalists buy the airwaves and they control the narrative. The best way to navigate the truth during this conflict is to assume everything that Israel and the United States say is a lie.
No. America is more ripe for revolution today than it was in the 60s. This is a fact. The American press media, an arm of capitalism, tries to make it appear as if the people are less conscious today than they were in the 60s. This is nothing but nonsense. No woman sitting here in this audience today can tell me that women, no matter what age they are today, are less conscious than those in the 60s of their responsibility to fight for their liberation. No handicapped person sitting in this audience can tell me that the handicapped are not more prepared to fight today for equality than they were in the 60s. In every aspect of life, the conscience of the people of America is rising. So much so that even the right wing comes to demonstrate this. They are involved in activities today which they called communistic in the 60s. Yes, they picket. Even policemen go on strike.
What's poppin'? What's poppin', people? Our boy Kwame Ture speaking the truth. You got diehard capitalists that are now using our techniques, that are now realizing why it's important to protest against imperialism, which is which is linked to capitalism, which is linked to Zionism. I really wish I can show this whole thing. I highly recommend you guys watch this 90-minute video. I am not bullshitting you. This is Dr. Kwame Ture speaking the truth about Zionism and triggering the shit out of a ton of Zionists in the process who tried to debate him, and they absolutely murder him. Kwame Ture absolutely murdered them. He murders them. It's like 5-on-1. He's like, all right, who's next? Let me explain to you guys why Judaism is not Zionism, which is taking ass kicking. We see the establishment panic. We see the escalating state violence, including violence against Jews. We are seeing examples of why Zionism makes Jewish people unsafe. But back to this clip. This clip is amazing. You guys saw my 2 hotspot videos that I made during my hiatus yesterday. We've seen a historic amount of revolutionary potential. I'm a revolutionary optimist. Sometimes to the point I sound delusional, but I think that's better than it being a nihilist, the standard social democrat. I view the social democrats, DSA, the people who believe there's no other option to vote Democrats, they are the biggest nihilists in politics. I have revolutionary discipline and optimism. Sometimes that bite me in my ass. But now we're seeing people hit the streets and protesting imperialism. You guys understand that the Free Palestine marches and protests, they have been the biggest anti-war rally since the Iraq War. That's giant, fam, over this cause. And now you got people like, what's her name? Megyn Kelly. She's handling this as well as we all expected she would. Freaking out, telling everyone to leave this country, advocating blacklisting people who protest against the government. The right wing exposed themselves because there's so much in shambles. Now, to what Kwame Ture said, the revolutionary discipline in Americans has never been higher. I'll play that part again. I love the joke here. I can only hope to be a fraction of what Kwame Ture is. I know some people don't like the idea of young black people looking up to people like Fred Hampton and following their footsteps. They make a lot of Karen, especially those at Black Power Media, for example, very upset. But I look at people like Kwame Ture and Malcolm X, and those are people we should learn from. The PMC black left, they want to gatekeep revolutionary black thought. And what people don't understand when we named ourselves Fred Hampton leftists, we wasn't taking the mantle of Fred Hampton. We was telling everyone that we should strive to be a fraction of what our revolutionary leaders are and have been. This whole debate is great. I may do a breakdown of this one day.
Than they were in the 60s. In every aspect of life, the conscience of the people of America is rising. So much so that even the right wing comes to demonstrate this. They are involved in activities today which they call communistic in the 60s. Yes, they picket. Even policemen go on strike. Thus, the objective conditions for revolution is clear because the conditions in America today are worse than they were in the 60s, beyond the wildest imagination.
And now conditions in America are worse than the 90s, where Kwame Ture gave this speech. There's never been a point where there's been more revolutionary potential. Now, nihilists will look at Kwame Ture like, why didn't a revolution happen in the 90s? Because the capitalists and the police, they squashed us. They use state violence. We are propagandized. We learn from defeats and we come back stronger with even more revolutionary discipline. If there was this revolutionary discipline in the 90s, and optimism in the 90s, why is that not apparent now? Why do you have professional managerial class people, Tom Hartman, for example, that essentially waved the white flag to the Democratic Party establishment, those who speak of building socialist and communist third parties as directed to us by our revolutionary leaders, we're considered unrealistic. Come on, man. Third parties are not possible. How many times have you guys heard this on boutique left media? They all say, come on, man. Third parties don't have a chance. Crystal Ball famously said, man, I like the idea of a third party, and if a third party ever got off the ground, I would theoretically support it. But it's not possible. Come on, we got to get realistic. We got to grow up, as she supported Marianne Williamson. But you notice how these people say they will support a third party once they get off the ground because they don't want to do the revolutionary work. They wave the white flag. Meanwhile, RBN, we are front and center trying to revitalize revolutionary optimism that the professional managerial class beat out of many workers in this country, beat out of the progressive left, beat out of the Bernie Sanders left, beat out AOC and the squad. I want to show you guys. I just want to show you guys this exchange. Actually, I wasn't planning on doing this, but I just want to show you guys how Kwame Ture kind of dismantles this guy. I think this guy, yeah, you guys see this guy was yelling. I almost don't want to show this without showing the lecture though, because the lecture is so fucking fire. It's 30 minutes of Kwame Ture just destroying Zionism.
This is unscientific garbage.
Yeah, let me go. This is a good point. This is a good point. Let me play a little bit of this. I'm going off script, fam. But this is Friday. This is Friday. What's popping, fam? This is Friday. So we're going a little bit off script. I want you guys to see a little bit of this. Then I want to show you guys the unhinged debate that he had. This is a segment off the cuff, not part of the main show. We're gonna get to that. I wasn't planning on a long show, but it may be. Let's see how long we get into this.
According to Mr. Herzl, Jews, and the theory that he said is that Jews were discriminated against all over the world. This is not true. In Europe, yes, but not all over the world. We must never make the particular history of Europe, the general history of the world.
We should never let, and this is what white America and many people do all the time, make the history of Europe the history of the world. That is such a profound quote. And that's why this is a 90-minute lecture. I recommend you watch all of it because the first part is Kwame Ture just dismantling, utterly destroying every facet of Zionism. And then after that, a bunch of mad Zionists in the crowd was coping. And then they try to step up to the king himself, and he smacks them down. This is a glorious video. I watched the entire thing last week. Never had time to do a segment on it, but I'm doing this off the cuff because I kind of want you guys to see it.
No question that Judaism had trouble in Europe, but we said all religions had trouble in Europe, so that's nothing new for Europe. These are historical.
I want you guys to hear that break.
This is a particular history, the particular history of Europe, the general history of the world. There's no question that Judaism had trouble in Europe, but we said all religions had trouble in Europe, so that's nothing new for Europe.
Yeah, you can make the argument that Jewish people were persecuted in Europe, but who wasn't? That's the argument he's making. And not because there was any necessarily targeted, systematic oppression.
These are historical facts. Consequently, we must not confuse it. But Mr. Hertz and those who are Zionists say that there's a hatred for Jews which is innate in human beings. This is unscientific garbage. How can anyone tell us, which preaches a religion, that someone cannot be transformed to a higher state when religion is about transforming human beings to a higher qualified state? They come to make an unscientific statement. Not only does Mr. Herschel say that people have an innate hatred for Judaism, but he says this innate hatred, which we who are non-Jews have, will continue forever. Even making an unscientific statement that nothing changes. Everything changes all the time. And certainly if one can be a heathen and become a believer, one who hates Jews can come to understand and correct oneself and come to appreciate Jews and may even become a Jew themselves. Consequently, this statement that innate hatred that the people have against Judaism is garbage, stupidity, unscientific nonsense. Zionism is a political philosophy. According to Mr. Herzl, the Jews were oppressed everywhere, and they needed a state, a country, which would save them and give them the right to protect themselves. Thus, he called, look at the stupidity. He says that everybody in the world is against Jews. They hate Jews, and now he wants to collect them in one spot where we can all come and get them. Well, stupidity, every aspect of it. Here, Mr. Herzl comes to tell us that not only are we innately against Jews and that we will never change, but the only way Jews themselves will protect themselves is when they come to have their own country. We said Mr. Herzl began in 1897. That great man, V.I. Lenin, at the turn of the century, wrote a book entitled Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism.
Hey!
The highest stage of capitalism, yes.
This is
if one would read this little pamphlet, one would see here that Mr. Lenin had precisely pointed out that all of the world had already been conquered and divided by colonial powers. There was no else in the world left to be conquered or divided by colonial powers. This is the time when Zionism comes to rise. Zionism comes to look for a state when everywhere else in the world is already dominated. Thus, in order for Mr. Herzl to get a country for Zionists, what he did was to attach himself to imperialism, British imperialism in this case.
Who does that?
Quite specifically. Of course, as an African who suffered under the heels of British imperialism, I can have no love for it, and certainly I cannot love anyone who attaches themselves to it and attaches themselves to it for the foundation of a state and then call this a liberation movement. Liberation movements fight against imperialism, not with it.
Fucking dismantled every Zionist. Do you guys understand what he just said there? Because you have Zionists, especially right-wingers, who like, they'll make the argument that, well, Palestine didn't exist as a state. For one, yes, it did. Yes, it did. Palestine was occupied by the British. So why would anyone accept the legitimacy of Britain having control of Palestine if you're anti-imperial? If you are against colonization, if you're a resistance movement against hate, why would you accept a state that was gotten by ill means based on imperialism? That's a devastating point that I never ever heard a Zionist acknowledge. In order to acknowledge this point, you got to acknowledge that you're pro-imperialist because you accept the world order established by imperialists and colonizers. So how can you accept the land that was stolen by other people? Let's continue.
Clearly here.
I need a few more minutes to do this.
The legal foundation of the State of Israel is what is known as the Balfour Declaration. This declaration was issued in 1917. A man in the government of Britain named Balfour wrote a paper and promised the Jews a national home. The national home he promised them was an area which Britain was colonizing, Palestine. Palestine didn't belong to the British. Just like Ireland doesn't belong to the British, even though they have troops there. But here, these British imperialists signed a note and gave it to the Jews, and they accepted it. Where is the morality for this? If you say that Israel belongs to you, then you don't go to a thief to get Israel, you go and take it. Once you go to an immoral being such as British imperialism, and this is the basis for you getting the land, then clearly here those who are truly liberation fighters must question this.
Now you guys see why the United States and Britain and their Western imperialists support Zionism? That's why Bernie Sanders is a scumbag of the highest order. Anyone who's a liberal on the left who's teaming up with rank imperialists to defend the state of Israel, you can only do so if you accept the claims of the British. That's why many Africans, that's why black people, that's why if you're anti-imperialist, you cannot be for the state of Israel. Which is why we see through RFK Jr. from day one. The second you start speaking about Israel, like, you're not anti-imperialist then. This is
the basis we say is the Balfour Declaration, and Zionists know it. The Zionism is certainly not a liberation movement because it never fought against any imperialism. As a matter of fact, today, Zionism is the baby, child, and infant protector of imperialism in the Middle East.
Yes.
It carries out the interests of American imperialism. As a matter of fact, Zionism and American imperialism is like this. If our tax dollars would stop giving money to Israel, the state would sink tomorrow.
RFK Jr. even admitted this. He explained why Israel is so important because it's an aircraft carrier into the Middle East. Israel wants war with Iran. Israel was supporting the genocide in Yemen. This was in the 90s, but this applies even more today. Even more today. Israel and the United States teaming up to bomb and illegally occupy Syria. Israel is the Middle Eastern puppet of the United States. That's why Zionism is a failure, because Zionism promised sovereignty. Did it not? Sovereignty for the Jewish people. There is nothing sovereign about Israel. Israel is a puppet of the United States. There is no sovereign Jewish land that came out of Zionism. Once again, watch this entire thing. We're gonna play a few more minutes of this, and I'm gonna show you guys the pushback he got, and he dismantles the guy who tried to debate him. This is an off the cuff segment, so this may be a little bit longer stream than I planned, but I really want to show you guys that this is brilliant. So let's play a little bit more, and then I want to show the debate.
And certainly no one can deny that American imperialism is the leading imperialist nation in the world. So we cannot see how a liberation movement is so tied, string and ham to American imperialism. They work hand in hand with American imperialism. Thus, they can hardly be a liberation movement. In addition to this, Zionism has nothing to do with anything religion, nothing. All religions are concerned with human beings after they die. That's what religions are for. Islam will tell you what happens to you when you die. As a matter of fact, this which forces you to live a good life so that after death, you'll be able to enjoy the rewards of heaven. The same is true for Judaism. But Zionism says nothing about the individual after they're dead. They don't give a damn about you. Thus, Zionism has nothing to do with religion at all. And one should not make the confusion here. The Palestinian state belongs to the Palestinian people. This is a fact. Of course, Zionism in the early days made all sorts of nonsensical propaganda. Oh, they ran away, they left the land. I saw one, he said, well, you know, they ran away and left the land. I said, well, they want to come back now. So just get out the way and let them come back. If you said they just ran away on their own. No.
By the way, Palestinians do not have the right to return like the way Israelis do. Remember those privileged college students shown on MSNBC and Fox News? They go to Ivy League schools who have God knows how much generational wealth behind them. One of them went on a spiritual and religious journey, a trip to the motherland to study in Israel for a year. And she's like, oh my God, I'm such a victim. I was back from Israel. Funny that you had such a strong connection to Israel. When you only was there for a year. You're like, all right, I'm out of here. Fuck this shit. I'm going to go back to Brooklyn, nigga. I want a pizza. That was they live in Brooklyn talking about how much they love fucking Israel. Go there for a year, leave. Can Palestinian people return? There's no right to return.
Zionism took Palestine through raw and naked terrorism.
Yes.
Naked.
Yes, sir.
Even that butcher, Begin, he will never rest in peace. He who came into a village and terrorized the village to scare the people to run out and was proud of it. This is how Zionism conquered the land. They didn't conquer it, not even with the Torah. They conquered it with the gun passed to them from American imperialism, British imperialism. All the imperialist countries in the world supported them. The Palestinian people have been totally driven out of their land. And Zionism comes to use as a justification for the state religion. There's no state in the world that can claim it's a state because of religion. That's not possible. Zionism cannot say that Jews belong to any one race. They cannot, because we know that Judaism came out of Africa, and the earliest Jews in the world were Africans. Even today, they must admit that those in Ethiopia are Jews, and therefore should come to Israel. So once you admit this, you admit that, oh, Judaism then is not, this question of Zionism is not a question of a race, but what they say is a nation, of course. But a religion is not a nationality, nor is a religion a nation. Religion transcends, that's the correct word. Religion transcends the boundaries, national boundaries.
It's such a great point.
We know that Islam, for example, began in Saudi Arabia. But you will find Frenchmen born in France who adhere to Islam and are true Muslims.
It
transcends geographical boundaries. We know that Africa stabilized Christianity for the world. But everywhere in the world today, you will find Christians. Religions transcends geographical boundaries. Consequently, Zionism must come to understand that it cannot claim or have anything to do with religion if it doesn't seek to transcend geographical boundaries. And it does not. As a matter of fact, it makes itself boundaries. Of course, these boundaries are not declared. Israel is the only state in the world with undeclared boundaries. Every other state has them except Israel. Zionism itself shows itself in the flux that it is. Even though in the Zionists...
I can easily continue. Once again, I highly recommend you guys to watch this entire fucking thing. That's 10 minutes of fire, fam. And this was an open, what's the best word for it? Let's say there's open dialogue here. So you have people of different ideologies here. And this fire just that you hear from Kwame Ture, and then this is like, and the whole speech is like 35 minutes before he take questions, and 35 minutes of him dismantling Zionism in every way, shape, or form. And they didn't really take it well. Let's see. I think it starts around right here. You can see one of these people stand up.
We're now going to go ahead and begin to field questions. We've got one. Let's go. This is the first one I noticed right up there in the back.
For the people asking, this video is called Dr. Kwame Ture Zionism Debate Lecture. You can find it on YouTube.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. Wait, he's...
First of all, I take great offense with anyone defining myself and my Jewishness as anything that you decide it is.
Listen, now, bro, this Karen, this male Karen, before the term even existed, was listening to the entire thing, fucking seething. This man is seething, bro. So he's gonna give a big Karen speech, but trust me, Kwame Ture quickly smacks him down.
Judaism, I define for myself, that's my right, no one else's. I take great offense with anyone defining myself and my Jewishness as anything that you decide it is. Judaism, I define for myself, that's my right, no one else's. Then the state of Israel, what you would call the Zionist state, would not have taken Jewish people who were black from Ethiopia and brought them to
Well, you can see how many people in the audience was seething at his entire lecture, right? But trust me, Kwame Ture destroys this guy.
At their request, Jews from India, Jews from Morocco, Jews from Algeria, Jews from all of those countries, which are in Africa, which are in Asia, which are not white countries. Also, Israel would not have one of the best centers for training African leaders, which is the Asian African Institute, which is located in Tel Aviv.
Let him talk. Let him talk. Let him talk. Let him talk. Let him talk.
Bro, the entire debate segment was like that, where the audience would get riled up, and then Kwame Ture was like, "Come on, man, just let him talk, bro. It's good. There's nothing to me, bro. It's good. Let him talk. Let him talk, bro." Kwame Ture during this entire debate destroys all of them without sweating. Just chill. They all riled up, going through a Karen speech. Kwame, all right, let him talk. Let him talk. Let me know. I'm gonna destroy him.
We're here for democracy. Are you finished, or you want to continue?
I'm done.
All right, thank you. Let me just answer you. We can start on your last question first. We Africans, of course, are involved in a serious struggle for the socialist unification of our continent. This struggle is a serious struggle because if one looks at Africa, it seems as if we have a monopoly of corruption. Our leaders are filthy pigs. They have no concern for the masses of our people. They're only concerned with lining their pockets. And the countries which Israel helped have the biggest pigs who oppress us. Go now and you see who is the bodyguard of Mobutu, the killer of Lumumba? Israel.
Fucking the Karen guy was like, "Come on, Israel trains a bunch of African leaders," and Kwame Ture like, "Dude, have you seen what the African leaders has done?" I'll let it continue.
Go to Liberia. Who supports that butcher dog? Israel. Go to Ethiopia, where Mengistu played that he was a socialist, and now when he's in trouble, runs back and forth. Who protects him? Israel. We don't stop here. You ought to talk about the relationship you have in Tanzania, South Africa, with the racist pigs there too. Your second question. The statement which you use saying that Israel shows that it's non-racist by going to get Ethiopian Jews and bring them to Israel shows exactly its racism. Because how can you, in the time you sound just like God, you're going to mark out and decide who you're going to save when there's drought? Here's the drought of all Africans, and you're only concerned with serving those who you call Jews. And you say this is a remark and a quality of human behavior?
Fucking obliterated. Easily. You notice how the crowd was cheering the Karen guy at first? And then Kwame Ture, all right, let him talk, bro. This is easy. Easy shit here. Dismantles his argument with no effort at all. Once again, I can only strive to be a fraction of what this guy is. Too bad we don't got Kwame Ture with us today.
Judaism cannot be defined by you. I am African. I gave it to you. I took and defined it.
He's going hard on this man.
You are only representing European culture, which every time a religion comes into Europe, it tries to take over that religion and chauvinistically make it its own. It has got to such ludicrous heights that it paints Jesus Christ white, even though he never put his foot in Europe.
He's dead. He's already dead, bro. He's already dead.
Brother, you had a question right there? Yeah, go ahead.
Watch the entire thing. I gotta stop there, bro. I went extremely too long, but I hope you guys enjoyed that segment that was completely impromptu. Speaking of impromptu, I'm gonna show you guys this Nelson Mandela clip, and then we can transition. I'll play this as I get the next segment ready. This is the Squirrel posted this on Twitter. They said, "This is amazing. Nelson Mandela actually visited Gaza in 1999 and said chosen." Actually, I let the video play from there.
Choose peace rather than confrontation. Choose peace rather than confrontation. Except in cases where we cannot proceed, where we cannot move forward. Then, if the only alternative is violence, we will use violence.
His comments won him applause from leader Yasser Arafat and the assembly.
All right, I think I'm ready. I think you guys always enjoy Nelson Mandela. I had to play that as I get the next segment ready. And we're going to discuss how Israel never cared at all about the hostages. Now, what's disgusting is that Western media, especially all our politicians, including the progressive one like Bernie Sanders and John Fetterman, they used hostages as a PR prop in order to justify killing more Palestinians, because there was multiple deals on the table. You had Qatar. You had a Qatari broker deal that would have released hostages, but Israel did not want to do that unless they got a ground offensive. Let me show you guys this damning story that came out yesterday. And Vice News is reporting on this. You guys see the second segment we're going to cover today will be CNN and BBC turning on Israel. Israel propaganda is so bad. This slaughter of the Palestinians is so horrific. It's shocking to me to see, but capitalists are making the calculation that, dude, we can't go down with this shit, bro. This shit is done. So you are seeing in CNN, BBC running critical stories because Israel did this ridiculous raid on a hospital that they claim was part of Hamas. They did a raid, and then they doctored evidence. Margaret Kimberly called this out before the raid happened. I said it on RBN as well. They're going to do this raid on the Al-Shifa hospital, and then they're going to plant evidence like they always do to justify and say, oh, Hamas is here. But if you have to plant evidence, if you have to lie to the point where you know you're in the wrong like this, why would anyone believe you? Israel is let me be clear here. The reason why I say the United States is the most propagandized country in the world is because the United States is the most effective propaganda. They get people to actually believe that CNN, Fox News is real news. They actually believe that America is free, despite the fact that we imprison 1/4 of the world's prison population. You know what I mean? They believe in that capitalism increased prosperity, and despite the fact that we had increased income inequality, millions of homeless. So in terms of effective propaganda, including them brainwashing the world on the war on terror, it's clown shit, but it's actually good. Israel, in terms of what they actually pump out, is probably you can say they're the most propagandized because the clown shit they put out there. But it's not effective. It's so ineffective, the entire world sees through them. You have Jewish people that are fed Zionist propaganda from day one. They see through it. That's how bad Israel propaganda is. Israel propaganda is so bad because they know the United States and the West will always have their back no matter what. So they don't have to influence. So they got lazy. I'm going to show you guys the laughable, cartoonish propaganda that Israel was putting out there. But first, I'm going to show you guys how... actually, I'll pull it out right now since I mentioned it. This is why I mentioned the IDF is the goofiest... The IDF is the goofiest terrorist organization of all time. So you had the IDF who uploaded a video of a laptop that they found from the hospital, but they made a mistake of not blurring the hospital out. They didn't blur the laptop out as they showed it. So then when they didn't blur it, it was clear that it was an IDF laptop because they had pictures of a ton of IDF soldiers on there. And Hotspot, the media organization I work with to produce these videos for you guys, they mentioned that IDF deletes and re-uploads video showing a fully charged, non-password protected laptop with damning evidence that it belonged to Hamas. How convenient! So the clowns at the IDF, remember they're the goofiest fucking terrorist organization of all time, they forgot to blur the laptop. It's important to keep in mind that there hasn't been power in the area. Meanwhile, it's a fully charged laptop.
Which will be analyzed, is a laptop. We found it in the MRI room. This is how the laptop looks. I don't know who it belonged to, but now it is being analyzed by our Intel people.
So if you're telling the truth, why would you delete the version of the laptop, the video that didn't have a blur screen? Wouldn't that show that it's a Hamas laptop? They deleted it because the picture shown showed that it was an IDF laptop. Let's see if I can find the picture. It's literally a picture of her. She's an IDF agent. She literally worked for the IDF. That was on the laptop. So they had to delete it. I'm going to show you guys more examples, but because of this clown shit propaganda, you have BBC and CNN that finally starting to turn on them. Now I'm going to show you guys why Israel don't give a fuck about the hostages, despite these very cringeworthy displays. I'm going to show you guys this. Danny Haifong was posting about this. I saw this video everywhere, where they are having these yoga segments for the Israeli hostages that Israel don't give a fuck about. Oh God. Not a lick of melanin in sight. Not a lick of melanin. What do you call this? Yoga mom for bombing Palestinian children? So is the ask of these people who care about the hostages that we should have a ceasefire? It's absolutely not. You want to know how absurd it is, guys? So these people said we need to free the hostages. We need to take care of the hostages, but they don't want a ceasefire. So they want to bomb the hostages? You have Israel and the IDF. They will say, we are 100% sure, we got evidence that Hamas and hostages are located at this hospital right here. So what should we do, sir? Let's bomb the hospital. How does that make sense? Oh my God, Hamas got hostages in hospitals and school kids in kids' schools. So let's bomb them. What? Do they understand that? I see Brooklyn Dad there. Big shout out to my friend Didi. That's funny. So the funny thing is, all these people who claim to care about the hostages, they don't call for a ceasefire. And how critical are they of the Israeli government? They want to spend all our time condemning Hamas, who, based on their logic, has every single right to commit October 7th. Because based on the logic of Israel, as I'm going to show you guys right now, Israel can kill as many kids as they want. They can bomb as many hospitals as they want. The reason why they can do that, the reason why they can commit war crimes, is because Hamas take hostages. But Israel has taken hundreds of children hostage. I think they have 170 children hostage. They have thousands of Palestinians that are held hostage without due process. So based on the logic of the Zionists, based on the logic of the war criminal Israel, Joe Biden and the entire Republican Party, Hamas have every single right to do what they did on October 7th because you guys got Palestinian prisoners. Do you guys understand that? But now listen to what the Israeli government has done. Look at this. Israel went at ground offensive before hostage deal. What? So Israel don't care about the hostages then. Let me read the subheadline. Israel is reportedly considering a deal to exchange some hostages with Hamas, as well as a humanitarian pause to the offensive in Gaza. But the problem with this is, and now Israel, like, we considering this hostage deal now. The problem is that this same hostage deal has been on the table for weeks now. For weeks now, there was a Qatari broker deal that would exchange hostages. Hamas would have freed hostages in exchange for what? In exchange, Israel had to free the women and children that they had in captive. Let me repeat that for you guys. No one in corporate media will tell you this. The deal that was brokered by Qatar, that was agreed to by Hamas, agreed to by many countries, that Israel just now supporting, that's been on the table for weeks now, was Hamas would release the hostages if Israel released the children and women that they had in prison. Tell me more about Hamas, how evil Hamas is. Israel had children and women. How much media is reporting on this? I read corporate media headlines on this, and they are not mentioned. They said there's a deal. They're going to exchange hostages. What hostages? You mean the women and children that Israel stolen from Palestinians? So now I want you guys to rewind, because now based on their logic is because Hamas took hostages from us, we are allowed to do whatever we want, including killing civilians and children in Gaza because of that. Now, based on their logic, doesn't Hamas have every right to do what they did on October 7th times 1,000? Think about that. Now, think about how little Israel actually care about the hostages, because the narrative that we are told about Hamas is that Hamas is uniquely evil. They torture and they kill hostages. Being a hostage under Hamas occupation is the worst thing that can happen to you. That is the message that comes from Zionism in Israel. So you, with the idea in your framework that being under Hamas captivity is awful, you wanted them to stay in Hamas captivity for weeks as you launch a ground offensive? I thought you said that Hamas was evil. How can you be so sure that Israeli hostages would survive if they stay in captivity with Hamas for weeks? But they did, right? They released hostages that said Hamas took good care of them. Let me there's another one here. Let me show you guys this. There's so much. This shows you how this part right here show you guys how Biden was complicit with this. So this deal has been on the table for weeks now. But despite the fact that this deal was on the table, that we will free hostages if there is a humanitarian pause, and that Israel released children and women that they had hostage, You have Joe Biden that, knowing this deal was on the table, then said that we cannot have a ceasefire unless Hamas releases the hostages. You guys see how Biden is purposely lying about this. He purposely covering for Israel, where Hamas agreed to release hostages. There was a Qatari broker deal based on the premise of having a ceasefire, humanitarian pauses, release in hostage exchanges. But Biden was pretending that such a thing didn't exist so he can fight against a ceasefire. Let me read the headline for people who are only listening. Biden said, then we can talk. Biden says no ceasefire in Israel-Hamas war until hostages is released. But doesn't that contradict the fact that Israel wanted to do this ground offensive before the hostage deal? Because Netanyahu didn't want a hostage exchange. Israel was very open about the fact that they didn't want to have a hostage exchange because that would temper down the bloodlust and rob them of the political capital that they need in order to commit a genocide. So do you guys see how Biden and the United States pretend that there's nothing they can do to stop Israel? But Biden is working with them on the propaganda? Let's get to this part here. I'll show you this one. Yeah, actually, no. This is Netanyahu. Just another example. So we have mounting evidence that Israel does not care about the hostages at all. So as Biden is telling you that we can't have a ceasefire because Hamas has hostages, even though Israel had way more, Netanyahu rejected a ceasefire for hostages. Why isn't Biden telling you this? Why isn't the corporate media telling you this? You guys see how Biden is working in tandem with them? Now let me show you guys this here. What the media also doesn't share with you, and the reason why I would never rob Hamas and Palestinians of their legal right to armed resistance. Because as I mentioned before, Israel's logic is that they can do whatever they want. They can commit all the war crimes they want. They can kill children. They can bomb hospitals because Hamas took prisoners. But people condemn Hamas for armed resistance, considering the fact that you have Palestinian prisoners, many of them that are in prison without due process. Headline: why are so many Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails? 4 in 10 Palestinian men spend time in an Israeli jail. Hamas says it wants to exchange captured Israelis for them. You guys know how many corporate media segments I watch, especially Fox News and Republican news, that do not mention that. And according to them, Hamas are barbarians who don't care about their own people. Meanwhile, Israel is bombing their own hostages, and Hamas is like, come on, man, we don't really want to keep these motherfuckers. We just want to get our fucking children back. We want our women and children back. We want our civilians who were charged without due process that was kidnapped by Israel back. Oh, man. Let's see. What number did they use? I'm going on top of my head. They talk about how Gaza is open their prison. I'm looking for the number. Yeah, I was right. 170 children. So, oh, Jesus Christ. So the number of Palestinians currently behind Israeli bars is 5,200, including 33 women and 170 children. And all the prisoners are prosecuted in military court. And I don't know where in this article it mentioned this, but I am well read on this. Many of the Palestinian prisoners are held without due process. That's something else you gotta remember. So based on their bloodthirsty logic, Hamas have every single right to do what it did on October 7th, because Israel stole 5,000 Palestinian people and have them in prisons. Now, the bullshit argument that they will make is that they are terrorists. Of course, we're going to hold terrorists in prisons, even though they don't charge them. Even though a lot of these people are civilians, there are a lot of testimony on this. But based on their logic, Hamas would say, and any rational freedom fighter would say, that Israel are terrorists because they are terrorizing the Palestinian people, which led to 2022 being one of the highest Palestinian death tolls of all time. The fact that we got 5,000 Palestinians in captivity is another reason as well. But there is, as we're going to cover here next, there's light at the end of the tunnel because Israel and Zionism is in shambles. They lost the trust of the world. The United States, Biden, Blinken, and Israel is isolated. So even Israelis, a lot of them who are bloodthirsty bigots who want to see Palestinians dead, they want their hostages back. So Benjamin Netanyahu, what he does, he uses hostages as a PR. Let's see if I can find the article. He uses it as a PR prop. Oh, here it is. I'm pulling all this up literally last second. So this is actually a pretty decent article here. For Netanyahu's government, Israeli hostages are just a propaganda tool. So they don't care about hostages. They want hostages to be there so they can stoke violent anti-Palestinian sentiment so they can complete their ethnic cleansing and genocide of the Palestinian people. And that's essentially what the claim here is. And that's why there was a let's see if I pull this one up too. You guys know I don't trust you guys just to believe me. There was a Hamas hostage exchange. Well, that was rejected. Fuck, let me find it. Oh well, damn, I should say that. But there was you had Hamas that offered a deal for hostages, and Israel rejected it, and they claimed it was propaganda, and they never got those offers. But it was widely reported that Netanyahu and Israel didn't want them because they wanted to keep the anger up for the genocide. But look, I want to show you guys something that's absolutely crazy and blew my mind because, as I was mentioning, Israelis want their family back. They want the hostages back. So they are livid with how Netanyahu is handling this. So this is unbelievable to me. As war rages, Israelis' trust in Netanyahu plummets. Poll find. So after October 7th, you now had under 4% of Israelis that trust Netanyahu. Jesus Christ. Let me read the subheadline. 4%. A poll conducted by researchers at Bar-Ilan University asked Israelis about trust in information and decision-making regarding the war in Gaza. Results show that under 4% trust Netanyahu. 4%? That's fucking crazy. Do you guys know what George W. Bush had like a 70%, 80% approval rating after 9/11? Israel is saying that October 7th is their 9/11. But after their 9/11, public still hate Netanyahu as he does this vengeance tour for them. It's unheard of. It's unheard of. And I can only guess that one of the reasons is because many Israelis want to see the hostages return, and a lot of Israelis are brainwashed, and they think that Hamas got hostages in hospitals, so they see Netanyahu bombing hospitals, and they're like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Why are you bombing your hostages? So you guys want to see an example why Zionism is not democracy? Zionism is not democracy. Apartheid states are inherently not democracies. But as you guys see here, people in Israel, even the settlers, are not happy about how Netanyahu is handling this conflict. But do they have a say? No. You know, the same way how most Americans want a ceasefire, including most Republicans, but we don't get it because America and Israel is not a democracy. I think this is incredible. But this shows why Zionism silences the free speech, and Zionism make Jews more unsafe. Because I can show you so many videos, but I don't want to get demonetized and pulled from YouTube. But there's all these videos of IDF officers beating the fuck out of Jewish people in Israel that are speaking up against Netanyahu. As we see, is massively unpopular. Look at this, under 4%. So we see the videos of people getting their ass beat by the IDF who protesting in Israel and their occupation of and their execution of Gaza. So how many Israelis don't go to peace protest because they know if they do go, not only will they get their ass beat, they will be ostracized from their community. They will be canceled financially and their lives will be ruined. Despite this fact, we still got peace activists in Israel. You had clips and there were videos of, and CJ covered this yesterday, where Jewish protesters in the United States were thrown downstairs. They was attacked by the United States police who also trained with the IDF. So you have Jewish people that are being attacked because they speak out against Israel bombing hostages. Can I repeat myself? Jewish peace activists are being brutalized in Israel and in America, in the UK, in Germany, in France, because they're protesting the Israeli government who is bombing the hostages that they want to see released. Do you guys understand how psychotic the times we're living in now? I'm going to transition to my next segment here. I think that's a good way to wrap it here. I have one more segment I definitely want to get to. I may save another segment for the next show where Biden called Gia a dictator. Actually, I'm going to do a quick drive-by rapid-fire segment on Biden calling Gia a dictator. Let me find the Blinken receipt because I know you guys saw Anthony Blinken reaction. I'm throwing this together real quick. So here we go. I'm going to read Super Chats and I'm going to do this next segment. So I'm going to quickly cover this and we got to get to the next one. We got one more meaty segment to get to today. So let me read some Super Chats. Thank for the 99 cents of Biden for the super sticker. We got Old Crow for the $4.99. Just sending some love coming from Gates Barbecue. Bro, I'm from Kansas City. What's popping, bro? You know we fucks with Gates. We fuck with barbecue out here. This Israel stuff has folks showing their whole ass. Absolutely. There are people that seeing how absolutely extreme Zionism is. There are people who have Zionist Jews that was friends and they were close to them that their relationship was severed because they didn't realize that the people that they knew for a long time actually were genocidal monsters. Thank God I don't have to deal with that. Thank you for Name My Taco being a new member. Big shout out to Name My Taco. Two more here and we move on. Thank you for the $2. There is no lesser evil with Joe Biden. Absolutely. Excuse me. Let me read the last one here. Thank you for $19.99. John, did the Black Panthers develop education curriculum for elementary schools, trade schools, and higher education? What was their education policy? The Black Panthers, not only did they advocate for like school lunches, they had their own, like you said, education system. And I'm big on theory. I try to preach revolutionary discipline and history to you guys because I know a lot of people don't have time to read it. But the Black Panther was so militant on the idea of education that they have monthly theory readings. If you wanted to be a leader in the Black Panthers, you had to host and you got to be a part of theory readings every month, educating people in your ranks. There wasn't no intellectual laziness in the Black Panthers. And now we have the exact opposite. We have a dumb love. We have people who don't read, openly celebrate. Yeah, I don't read Marx. I don't read this. I don't read that. I don't read history. I don't read none of this shit. You know what I mean? RBN, we trying to correct this. We want people to be educated. If you can't read, it's our job as educators to educate people on this. But as Fred Hampton said, there's no revolution without education. We can't move as a working class people based on vibes, like the boutique left, the Sam Cedar, Crystal Ball, Cal Kalinske left, based on no theory, no Marxist analysis, it's just based on vibes. We absolutely can't have that anymore. So I will read the rest of the super chats after this next segment. Let's see what I titled this. You have Biden that's spreading massive amount of misinformation, but Israel propaganda has been so bad that we have, excuse me, CNN and BBC that is turning against Israel. But before I get to, I'm gonna do the quick Biden called G a dictator thing. I think this is funny. This is in direct contrast to what the mission was, where the United States were hosting China so they can ease tensions, even though the United States is 100% at fault for escalation because they are arming Taiwanese separatists as we speak. They send nuclear submarines to Australia and Japan. They had U.S. ships that is invading China's sovereignty in the South China Sea, and then they blame China for being upset because the United States is violating their sovereignty. You have sanctions. You have United States constant escalation against China. But despite this, China has to be the grown-up in the room. They had to be the grown-up in the room. So despite all these grievances, China said, we can't have a World War III. We can't have war that would destabilize the global working class. So China, like Iran, like Russia, like many other countries before them, like Venezuela, like every single United States enemy, they had to be the grown-up in the room. And they come together and they have big meetings. And this was the meeting that Xi Jinping had with Biden that was around 3 hours. It was a 4-hour meeting that the media hyped up. And Morning Joe did a whole segment, and the corporate media was saying, isn't it great that we have Joe Biden as leader right now? Because we have someone like Donald Trump who's off the cuff, who's unhinged. He would ruin this opportunity for diplomacy. So after this summit happened and everything apparently went off perfectly, you had Joe Biden that said this, that fell for this trap.
Yes.
And Mr. President, after today, would you still refer to President Xi as a dictator? This is a term that you used earlier this year.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he is a guy who runs a country that is a communist country that is based on a form of government totally different than ours. Anyway.
Biden says China and Xi Jinping is a dictator because he runs a communist country. So they admit it. They admit it now. So, and not because of authoritarian tendencies, it's because they have a different economic model than us. Because banks are controlled, they control housing, they control the loan system. The banks are nationalized in China. That's a very big difference between our society. That's why housing is much cheaper in China. The average rent in China is around $500 because banks are owned by the government. Now, because we are surrounded by capitalist countries and capitalist markets, China allows the flow of capital in their society. But infrastructure and central planning is defined by the government, which is what I would call, and many people define as market socialism, and their transition into a communist country. But in not a critique of their system, Biden is saying that they're authoritarian because they're communists. So Biden accidentally gives the game away, where they will go after your country and they will stoke tensions with you, and they will call you an authoritarian dictator, not because you're actually authoritarian, it's because you have a different economic model than we do. You know, a model where the average rent $500 a month. You know the economic model which led them to have high-speed rail in their country, free healthcare, no homeless in their society. And what's even more ridiculous about this is that we just covered how 80% of Democrats want a ceasefire. 80% of Democrats want a ceasefire. Do we got a ceasefire? No, we do not. We do not. 80% of Democrats want Medicare for all. 70% of independents want Medicare for all. The majority of voters want Medicare for all. Do we get Medicare for all? No, Joe Biden said he will veto Medicare for all. Everything they accuse China of, we are. We do not get what we want in our country. If you ask conservatives, they want to increase the minimum wage. They want to increase Medicaid. That's why we had a Medicaid expansion in Missouri, because Republicans want it. The American people want gains and they want the government to work for the people, but we don't get it. The American people want the end of the empire. We want the end of Guantanamo Bay. We want the end of drone strikes and Patriot Act and surveillance. Do we get it? No. That is a dictatorship. China, Xi Jinping and their party has an approval rating around 70 to 80%. Putin has an approval rating around 80%. When China overstepped on COVID mandates and COVID lockdowns, China hit the streets, and then China rolled back the COVID mandates and lockdowns because they listened to the people of China. China proposed policies that are popular by the people, even though they are culturally different. And I will explain to you guys things I disagree with on China, like the drug policy, for example. I don't agree that you should make marijuana and stuff like that illegal. But Chinese culture is different. So they got the policy that reflect their culture. They're anti-drug because their society was destroyed by the Opium Wars. The Chinese people, their society was destroyed by the British importing drugs into the society, which led to a culture where they're anti-drug. Now, in Marxism, we all know, and it's explained through Marxism, that socialism and communism come about through the different cultural struggles that people go through. So this cultural struggle that Chinese people went through, where drugs was a weapon of the empire, it led their culture and society to be anti-drug. So they got the will of the people and they banned drugs. Meanwhile, in the United States, we are a country that loves drugs. We love some fucking drugs. They're trying to ban alcohol in the 20s. And then that led to fucking the rise of Al Capone and the mob. So they realized it was a mistake. So then they banned marijuana, cocaine, and a ton of other drugs that Americans love. And they created a prison industrial complex because our government created a law that was out of lockstep with our culture. So even though I disagree with the Chinese drug law, you got to notice how the Chinese drug law is in lockstep with their culture. That's why, despite the fact that China has 1.3, 1.4 billion people, however much it is, they imprison less people than we do. The reason why they imprison less people than we do is because Chinese people are their culture is in compliance with the law. There's no conflict. So China does not have to lock many people up for drugs because Chinese people are not using drugs like that. Meanwhile, in the United States, the prison population explodes because our culture is out of lockstep with the law. That is the definition, and that is what it means to be authoritarian. You guys understand? So when they say socialism and communism lead to authoritarianism, capitalists are wrong. There is no more democratic system than socialism and communists and communism than when workers own the means of production, when capitalists do not control the policies. In the United States, we don't get the policies we want because capitalists control the politicians. They control the means of production. So the best way to get democracy is when we control the means of production. That will happen in Cuba. That will happen in China. That's why their policy is reflective of their culture. Do you guys enjoy that lecture? I'll spare you guys. But that's why it's absurd for Biden to call Xi Jinping a dictator. And they will say, well, haven't Xi Jinping, this is the last argument I'm going to destroy. They will say, Xi Jinping, he's been in charge for 12 years. He must be a dictator. Our society, we are not authoritarians and we don't have dictators because we have term limits. Oh, you sweet summer child. Tell me more about your term limits. Where Dianne Feinstein was a senator until her brain literally stopped working. California was stuck with Dianne Feinstein for decades. Nancy Pelosi for decades. Chuck Schumer for decades. Mitch McConnell, one of the most hated politicians of all time, Kentucky or wherever the fuck, was stuck with him for decades. Way longer than Xi Jinping and Putin been in power. You want to know why? Because under the capitalist mode of production, capitalists control elections. So you can predict who wins the American election around a 95% clip based on who raises the most money. Meaning that this illusion of democracy that you had, these illusions of term limits, means nothing. And you're like, well, at least the president goes every 8 years. Does he? Does he? Does he? Because there's something called cabinet. There's something called the Pentagon. There's something called the permanent state. Now, the right wing has bastardized what the deep state actually is because they think the deep state is just people fucking, the government hates Trump, so we're going after Trump. No, the permanent state, as leftists been defining, is the unelected bureaucrats that we can't get rid of, like Anthony Blinken, who's been in government for decades. How do we get Anthony Blinken out of government? How do we get, my question for you is, if you think the United States is not a dictatorship and we are a democracy instead of an authoritarian country, how do we get rid of Neera Tanden? Based on the premise of democracy, we denied Neera Tanden a position in government when we voted against Hillary Clinton not once but twice. Neera Tanden was a campaign manager, worked very closely with Hillary Clinton. So when we voted against Hillary Clinton, by extension, we voted against Neera Tanden, didn't we? Notice how Neera Tanden is the domestic White House chief for Joe Biden right now? I thought we voted against her. You notice how the United States is filled with swamp monsters who we can't get rid of? Like Mike Pompeo, John Bolton. These are the people that Donald Trump hired. But he's talking about how he drained the swamp. That's the deep state, fam. What's popping, Rome? My homie. My homie. This is a Friday lecture with Dr. Nick. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm not that arrogant. But I can wrap this. Because this segment wasn't supposed to be that long, so I'll wrap it here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the lecture over the capitalist contradictions about authoritarianism, socialism, who's a dictator, who's not a dictator. Your term limits in this country means absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Americans don't get the policies they want. It is the exact opposite. Everything they say about China is the United States. Like everything Israel said about Hamas is a projection. So this will be our last segment of the day. Let me get set up here. I'll read a few super chats while I do that. Oh shit, no. I'm supposed to show you guys this. I almost forgot. You have, look at the react. I told you guys this was such a blunder on behalf of Biden because the liberal messaging behind this was, thank God that we have Joe Biden as president instead of Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump is so off the cuff, he could never handle high pressure diplomacy situations like this. Meanwhile, Joe Biden, as we stated, is exactly like Donald Trump. Because everything they claim about Donald Trump, how Donald Trump alienated our allies, how Donald Trump make it look like an ass on the world stage, applies to Biden. So watch Joe Biden completely throw away that narrative that Democrats been spinning immediately, and Anthony Blinken knows it. So this is Anthony Blinken reacting to Biden calling Xi a dictator because they realize how fucked that is. Let me get the audio up.
You still refer to President Xi as a dictator. This is a term that you used earlier this year.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he is a guy who runs a country that is
This motherfucker got no poker face, man.
President, after today, would you still refer to President Xi as a dictator? This is a term that you used earlier this year.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that
he like, man, we coached you so much. We got you on so many drugs and you still fucked up. So they had this big high pressure summit. Let me see if I can find an article that worded it right like that. I know CNN, this segment was like, this is a high pressure meeting. Let's see if I can find one that says that. Oh well, not a big deal. But you guys see China's very upset about this. So the narrative that Biden is much better to handle stuff like this than Trump just got destroyed. So now China strongly opposes Biden's dictator remark. The statement is extremely wrong and irresponsible political manipulation. I don't got time to show you guys this. I know you guys probably don't care anyway. Cause Morning Joe, when they covered this, Joe Scarborough like, yeah, when Biden called Xi a dictator, China was like, hell yeah, we are. Xi Jinping wears it as a badge of honor. That's the messaging that comes from liberals and MSNBC. So if you're a dictator like they claim, wouldn't Xi Jinping and China own it? No. China is very upset, and the entire premise of this meeting was just thrown out. Biden ruined it because he a dementia-ridden, broken brain idiot who is everything that they said Donald Trump was. Woo! I only plan on doing an hour today, but man, this is a fun live, isn't it? I am fun. This is the last segment we're gonna get to, where, because I got covered this because it's in the title, where CNN and BBC, they are now turning against Israel because their propaganda has been so awful. The smartest people among the also complicit, don't get twisted, the also complicit ruling class and professional managerial class, they realize that they can't go down with the Israeli ship. And that's what the next segment is about. Hopefully you guys enjoying this stream. I did a workout, hit the heavy bag, and I decided to jump on today. We gotta give our brother CJ a break. Our boy CJ been killing the game. So I'm like, bro, CJ, take a goddamn break, bro. Take a damn break. The fuck? We didn't get an RBN just to work like capitalists where you fucking burnt out. So I decided to pick up. I'll pick up the slack a little bit for this next week. We gotta give CJ some time, man. I took some time. This shit is actually very fucking hard to cover, man. I'm a baby. You guys know I'm a fucking baby at heart. I'm taking a Twitter break for the most part because I'm tired of seeing dead babies, man. This shit is making me more radicalized than you guys can understand. I've been holding back on YouTube. Like, this shit got me ready to throw hands, fam. Like, you guys see those videos of Zionist Israelis yelling at Palestinian activists. I've been to a few Palestinian protests. That happened to me, man. I'll get in trouble, bro. I am not. You guys saw my response to Black Power Media. People are like, why are you so angry? Because I'm like, bro, you guys picked the wrong time to do this shit. I am not in the mentality for that bullshit. Thank for them. I'll get into some super chat before we get to the last segment of the day. Make sure you guys share before I get to the last segment. If you guys enjoyed the show thus far, I think you guys are going to enjoy the last segment. I'll say that for last. CNN and BBC are turning against Israel because of what I explained to you guys throughout the course of this episode. So thank for the 100. I don't know what currency that is. I just call it thank for the 100 bucks. Is it possible for you to put your shows on Spotify too? I have no idea how to do that shit, man. Fam, if it wasn't for Aaron, bro, RBN would be in shambles. If it wasn't for Aaron, CJ, and JB, bro, I'm so bad with technology. Like, CJ good at producing. You guys see Savvy kill the game on her channel. I'm just some fucking wise ass who can talk shit on the camera, I guess. People who follow my old YouTube channel, you guys remember my old school technical difficulties where I told you guys, like, bro, my stream could end anytime, fam. You better enjoy it because shit might black out. Before RBN, bro, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. So that's what the benefit of RBN brought me. Because I learned to produce these shows on my own now, but bro, it was one hell of a learning experience. Get on Spotify, I can't even wrap my brain around. I couldn't even wrap my brain around that. But it is possible. It's gonna happen one day. Thank for the $5 left less. This is a learning experience on which people could see why we need to unite against this bullshit leadership. And now do you guys see why RBN is brutally suppressed on YouTube? Brutally suppressed. Anyway, I just leave it there. I don't even. You guys get tired of me fucking bragging. I started bragging more, guys, because I get smeared so much. Like, people say RBN don't do shit, RBN not in the street. So I had to we gotta brag about activism now. Because people will smear us. Like, you guys saw what Black Power Media did. If we don't brag, people will smear us. I learned that. Like, I got 100,000 followers on Ture now. I'm not trying to be braggadocious, but I've seen people just lie about us. So I be more humble. Thank you, G. Damn, what the fuck? Let me read that again. Gifted 5 Revolutionary Blackout memberships. Everyone, drop a big dub for JV Black in the chat for that. Drop a big dub for JV Black. What's popping, my friend? Everyone show some love for gifting some Blackout memberships. The thing is, we wasn't even monetized for like the first year because YouTube was fucking with us. Like people have no idea how much they've been fucking with us. Or Twitch. Like how do people stream on Twitch? We got on Twitch and RBN, we was banned immediately. You got all these sock dens that fucking making bank on Twitch and shit. We get on Twitch, we start talking about Ukraine. We last for like a month. Anyway, let's move on. Thank you for the 199. Thank you, Amanda. Time for UBI in America. Printing money is possible. I explained to you guys before. Modern monetary theory sounds very persuasive to me. I will openly admit that's not my strong suit. We had people who was good on monetary MMT on the show. I think they sound legit. They're not my expertise. It's definitely something we need to spread awareness on. I think critiques of MMT, but I think it's very sound in general. I'm not going to pretend to be expert on that though, because I absolutely not. Thank you for the 499, John. Blinken is like Cheney with Bush or James Barker with Reagan. Thank you for the consistent super chats, my friend John. Thank you for the 199, another one for Amanda. And then we read the rest of the super chats after our last segment of the day. Thank you for the 199. UBI for USA and others could help lead to. Absolutely. Much love to anyone who shared the stream. Like, make sure you check if you still subscribe and all that stuff. Let me move on to our last segment. This is the part I'm getting tired. You guys know I get tired. I start to slur my words sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. I already showed you guys how the IDF is the goofiest terrorist organization of all time. Well, I'll post show you guys this later, but I already showed you guys this, so I'll just read it. This is where the IDF was caught lying about the raid, the hospital raid on Hamas. And now, after their raid, and after they was caught planning shit like this and doing it in the most blatant way, you have the corporate media that is now turning against them. So I'm gonna show you guys just another receipt here. Big shout out to Hotspot who helped me produce my videos for putting this stuff together. Let me read this. Despite there being no Hamas in the area, Israeli forces have raided Ibn Sina Hospital in Jenin. Since October 7th, IDF Israeli settlers have killed an estimated 200 people in the West Bank, and no explanation has been given as to the cause of the occupation. Now, CNN is going to get their ass for that, which is extremely surprising to me, where you're going to see Jake Tapper, just like they lost Wolf, they lost they lost the Tap Man. They lost Tap Man. That's how bad and embarrassing Israeli propaganda is to the most propagandized country in the world, the United States and Britain, right? Let me show you guys this, because I'm going to show you guys who the real terrorists are, which is Israel. You have Israeli IDF soldiers boasting about raiding children's schools. You had TikTok influencers in Israel that bragging about bombing hospitals and bombing kids. IDF soldiers celebrating the murder of civilians. So they are losing the PR war and the propaganda war in a way I've never seen Israel lose it. I've never seen the BBC and CNN turn against Israel like the way that I'm about to show you guys. And this is one of the reasons why. The caption for this video says, invading an elementary school and smashing student certificates on the wall is sure to help Israel's propaganda war. This is one of many examples of IDF people just bragging about their war crimes. You're a real warrior, pal. You guys notice how Israel did a ground offensive and now they open to hostage exchanges, right? And they had to bomb hospitals, right? Because as soon as they started their ground invasion, Hamas started kicking their ass. They got their ass kicked. So they resorted to doing the one thing they always do, bombing hospitals, killing kids. So when people join the IDF, when they are forced to join the IDF in this militaristic terrorist state known as Israel, they do so with the expectation and understanding that they're going to kill and murder kids, they're going to displace civilians, and they're going to raise schools, and they're happy about it. I told you guys many times before, everything they tell you about Hamas is true of Israel. Now, this raid of the hospital has been such a disaster for Israel that the BBC and Western media is calling them out for this because the whole idea, like Biden backed up, because Biden and the United States government is the biggest purveyor of misinformation in the world. Biden helped spread the false claim that Hamas was hiding in Al-Shifa hospital. So Israel said, we're going to raid the hospital and we're going to expose the Hamas terror cell in Al-Shifa hospital. And it went as badly as we knew it would be. And as anyone who had common sense, I told you guys, how many times I told you guys on this channel that the idea that Hamas is implanted in hospitals is absurd. And anyone who repeated that should never be taken seriously on anything ever again. Tim Pool, the entire right wing, David Pakman, everybody who repeated that garbage that Hamas was under hospitals, they bombed the hospitals and then they couldn't confirm dead Hamas people. They bombed the hospitals, but you never saw pictures of the tunnels. You saw made up bullshit, political fan fictions of what the hospitals theoretically look like. Why are they showing us theoretical pictures of what the tunnels look like? If the tunnels existed, wouldn't they show you the fucking tunnels? You brainwashed Westerners. How does that not click to people? Hey, we got the IDF. We have this analysis. We drew this picture of Hamas tunnels. We estimate that they look like this. If they had tunnels, they would show you instead of drawing a picture of it. Are we clear? But despite this, Biden defends the Israeli hospital raid because he doubled down on the claim that Hamas is in the hospital. Now, for a second time, I decided not to show the whole video. Let's see if I can put the cloak. Here you go. Here it is. Maybe I should find the video. Maybe wonder if I can find it real quick because I do remember seeing it. But Biden said he declared it was a fact that Hamas had their headquarters, their military hidden under a hospital. Fuck, I actually do need to find it up. I actually do need to pull that up. I don't want to be lazy. I apologize. I should prepare slightly better for this. Here it is. That's where. Fuck. Oh, well, I'll just read the quote. The video not that big of a deal. Here's the quote. President Biden declared it was a fact that Hamas had their headquarters, their military hidden under a hospital. He said it was a fact. And in the video I'm referencing, Biden was asked, where's the evidence of this? He's like, I'm not going to show you guys that. I've seen the evidence, but I'm not going to show you the evidence. If they have, and I've explained to you guys many times before, if they had evidence, they would show you the evidence. If they had evidence, here it is. Sorry, it took me a while. I had to search for it again. Here's the video. As I mentioned, if they had evidence of something, they will show you that. It had evidence of weapons of mass destruction. It had evidence of Assad gassing their own people. They will show you that. If they had evidence of these Hamas operation systems in hospitals as they was taking heat for bombing hospitals, you think they wouldn't tell you or show you? Why would anyone believe that? But meanwhile, it's taken as fact by David Pakman in liberal media, Tim Pool, Ben Shapiro in right-wing media. They all take it as fact. RBN and our friends, we're the only sane people in the room, apparently. Here's a clip.
We can hold the hours. No, I can't tell you. I won't tell you.
Yeah, I wish this one had subtitles.
Yes. Yes.
And Mr. President, after today, would you still refer to President Xi as a dictator?
This video doesn't have subtitles, so I'll read you the context here. Biden absolutely confident Hamas headquarters is beneath Shifa Hospital. And he was asked, can you tell us what intelligence you have? Biden says, no, I cannot tell you. I won't tell you. So Sabby, RBN sister Sabby says, Biden needs to resign immediately. He has no evidence for this claim. Remember, if they had evidence, they will show you, wouldn't they? Now, this is the BBC. The Western media had enough. I'm gonna try my best to explain to you guys what is about to, why the BBC and CNN decided to go out to Israel. I will openly admit that it doesn't really make sense to me. We've seen Israel be defended by the BBC and CNN despite massive atrocities. So my explanation is that the BBC and CNN is offended by Israel's pathetic propaganda. That CNN and BBC will have Israel's back as much as possible until they started hurting their credibility. Like, seriously. That's the only explanation I can give you guys, but because I've seen BBC and CNN cover for Israel on worse shit. Well, I wouldn't say worse shit, because it doesn't get worse than this, to be honest. So I would say maybe this was the lie in the sand. I can't really explain it. So let's play the video. I'm going to read some comments, see how you guys explain it. Because when I watch these two segments, my mind is blown. I can't explain to you guys why the Israeli bought BBC and CNN is now doing this. My only explanation is because of ego. That's the best I got. So let's watch this BBC takedown. This is them explaining how Israel lied to the world and failed to produce evidence that Hamas was in Al-Shifa Hospital.
Verify has been examining the different sources of information that we have on this. Israel described the Al-Shifa Hospital as the main headquarters for Hamas's terrorist activity. This IDF animation, posted in late October, claims to represent a Hamas tunnel system underneath the hospital. But having been inside Al-Shifa since early Wednesday, Israel's yet to produce evidence of the tunnels. It has allowed the BBC and Fox News to film at the hospital, though only locations of Israel's choice.
This is what they found.
Israel also released its own 7-minute video, which BBC Verify has analysed. A watch, visible in that video, suggests it was filmed a few hours before the BBC arrived. And this IDF video was posted, then deleted, then reposted, this time without a section referring to an Israeli soldier who'd been held hostage.
So you guys see how the BBC is deeply unimpressed. This is why I can only have the unscientific commentary on this as I do. It's because the propagandists at BBC in the United States, the two most propagandized country in the world, is looking at Israel's doing, and it's not like they don't approve. It's that they are shocked at how bad Israel is at trying to prove their claim that Hamas is in hospitals. So I apologize that the audio a little bit low. I won't talk that much during these videos, so you can turn it up if you have to. So I'll let it continue. But see, look at how deeply unimpressed the BBC is.
And this IDF video was posted, then deleted, then reposted, this time without a section referring to an Israeli soldier who'd been held hostage.
I don't know when this was used the last time.
Also in the video, we see a room with an MRI machine.
And if you zoom in and we get some light over here, what you'll be able to see is military equipment.
The BBC was shown the same room. And what we see in the two videos doesn't precisely match. For example, there's one gun in the IDF video 2 by the time of the BBC footage. Israel has told BBC Verify this is because more weaponry and terrorist assets were discovered throughout the day.
And as always, an AK-47.
Israel also says its video is a single shot with no edits, but this appears to be an edit. We don't know the reasons for that edit, nor how significant it is. The IDF, though, says suggestions it's manipulating the media are incorrect. The IDF video also shows military equipment in other locations, though we can't verify how it came to be there. And what we see in this IDF video doesn't equate to Israel's description of Al-Shifa as an operational command center for Hamas. The US is using a different phrase, saying Al-Shifa was used as a command and control node. That implies a much smaller facility. And as Israel makes the case for this operation, let's consider the Geneva Conventions, the foundations of the rules of war.
You guys wasn't considering the Geneva Conventions when you guys gave them the AOK, when you guys kept saying Israel had the right to defend himself when they do not. But you guys see how the BBC is just embarrassed? And it's almost like they saw what happened. They said we have to clown this. Like, as professional propagandists, it's our obligation to clown Israel so they can get better. Like, this is like constructive criticism. Like, bro, you guys are fucking garbage. Like, we're in the new age. You guys can't be this terrible at propaganda anymore. Here's the Guardian calling them out. The real propagandists are seeing the amateurs, the goofs in Israel, and they are sick to their stomach because they have to align with them. Their bosses tell them to. They've been living their entire life believing in Israel, and now that they see how absolutely goofy their propaganda is, they are embarrassed by association. The IDF in Israel, they are the goofiest terrorist organization of all time, as I said. Here's the Guardian. IDF evidence so far falls well short of Al-Shifa Hospital being Hamas HQ. You guys see the cope there? So far. So far they don't got it. They might produce it, but thus far, no, we don't got it yet. What did we tell you guys at RBN from day one? Mark it on, check another one where RBN was out in front telling you guys. I was laughing at the idea that Hamas has their headquarters in hospitals. You guys remember? You guys remember how I was laughing about this for weeks? Meanwhile, on Tim Pool, on David Pakman, on Ben Shapiro, you know shows that get way more views than we do? They was repeating that shit as fact. They still repeating that as fact. You know how Mediaite ranked us as the most extreme, left-wing, unreliable news source in America? We're one of the few people who got this right. From day one, I told you guys it's absurd. You had doctors working there for decades. If Hamas had control centers and they ran a hospital, wouldn't the doctors realize that? Wouldn't they tell people that? There's so much this basic critical thinking that could have told you that this was not true. Now, there's a lot of video I'm going to show you guys. Once again, if you lose CNN, if you lose the BBC, that shows that you guys are fucking goofs. How do you lose Jake Tapper? You lost the fucking Tap Man. How is that possible? Let me get to this. sorry, let me show
for
this
taking
one here.
advantage of the Hamas attacks, taking advantage and using the attacks to advance their racist, anti-Arab agenda.
I'm sorry, I had the video up now. Sorry, it was
Let's
messing
start
up.
in the West Bank, as Sander suggested we should, with Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. Smotrich is a hateful anti-Arab bigot. He's a far-right politician in the Netanyahu coalition, and he has broad powers over civilian issues in the West Bank. Haaretz reports that since October 7th, more than 170 Palestinians have been killed in clashes with Israelis across the West Bank. Now, way back in 2005, when Israel was withdrawing from Gaza, Smotrich was arrested by the Israeli security services, the Shin Bet. Smotrich was arrested under suspicion of planning terrorist attacks. He was held by the Shin Bet for 3 weeks. He was suspected of planning to block major public roads and damage infrastructure. That's according to Yediot Achronot, a major Israeli newspaper. In 2019, the former deputy head of the Shin Bet called Smotrich a, quote, Jewish terrorist. That's according to Israel's Channel 13. Now, Smotrich denies those claims. He stated he was proud of his role in opposing Israel's expulsion from Gaza, quote, noting that he was freed without any charges being filed against him, according to a report from the Times of Israel. Now, Bisharat writes in Haaretz on Monday of this week that Smotrich, quote, sees the disaster that has befallen the country as an opportunity to plunder the West Bank. The settlers, who share his messianic ideology, have begun to carry out their plans to purge the area of its Palestinian population, unquote. As with this scene you see of armed Israeli settlers, zealots, extremists, harassing Palestinians, wreaking havoc in the West Bank. And then there's the Minister of National Security, Itamar Ben-Gvir. Quote, immediately.
Welcome to the game, CNN. You finally caught up, huh? Isn't it funny how a bunch of uneducated college dropouts at RBN was telling you guys this stuff way before CNN was? But Mediaite ranks them as more reliable than us. We are the radical, far-left media publication in America. This is extremely shocking. I have never seen a CNN segment go at Israel this hard my entire life. And this person who posted the video, when we get back to it, he said CNN, perhaps the most shocking CNN episode I have ever seen in my lifetime. And trust me, Jake Tapper is just getting started, so I'm going to let it play here before we wrap up here.
Immediately upon hearing of the criminal Hamas attacks, Bisharat writes, Ben-Gvir was calling for a sequel to the 2021 Arab-Jewish riots in order to devour what is left of Israeli democracy, unquote. This includes armed militias, subordinate to Ben-Gvir, wandering the streets of Tel Aviv, and, quote, the thought police, hard at work, arresting civics teacher Dr. Meir Baruchin for posts on Facebook opposing the Israeli army's operations in Gaza and for showing compassion for Palestinian suffering, unquote. Of course, Ben-Gvir's first targets, he writes, Israel's Arab citizens who have been harassed, indicted, and arrested. Quote, not only is the blood of human beings being spilled, so is the blood of Israeli democracy, or what is left of it. Around it, a crazed band is dancing joyfully. Ben-Gvir, quote, has declared war on the Arab community, and not a single word of criticism has been uttered by the Israeli mainstream against this shameful spectacle, unquote. Yesterday, Ben-Gvir posted this video bragging about how Hamas terrorists are receiving, quote, the most stringent conditions. 8 handcuffed terrorists in a dark cell, iron beds, toilets in a hole in the floor, to which Israeli citizen Gil Dickman tweeted to Minister Ben-Gvir, quote, Itamar, I'm begging. My cousin is now in the hands of Hamas. He's kidnapped his cousin. Your words about the dark dungeon, the hole in the floor, the handcuffs, and the humiliation put her in real danger. Your every tweet is a match that burns the hearts of our families. I'm begging, Itamar. There are Israelis there whose life and death are in the hands of your tongue. Please stop, unquote. But thinking about such things does not really seem to be Ben-Gvir's way. He is an openly racist,
You guys notice, this is why I just covered in the stream, Israelis are realizing that their government don't give a shit about them and their hostages. As I mentioned before, if you wanted to free the hostages, why wouldn't you accept the ceasefire? If you continue your bombing of civilians and civilian infrastructure, wouldn't I give Hamas, the organization that you guys deem to be the greatest evil ever, wouldn't I give them more incentive to kill the hostages? You guys see how Zionism robbed the ability of people to think? So Hamas, the most evil organization that ever existed, the new Nazis according to Zionists, you expect them to keep them alive as you bomb their infrastructure if they're so evil? You guys see the contradictions here? But let me continue the video.
Arab, a member of a far right party, anti-Arab, member, really seem to be Ben-Gvir's way. He is an openly racist, anti-Arab, member of a far right party that Netanyahu joined with to form his coalition. Ben-Gvir's vile views, we should know, are no surprise. Until 2020, Ben-Gvir had a portrait in his home of Baruch Goldstein. Baruch Goldstein is a Jewish terrorist who murdered 29 Palestinian worshipers in the 1994 Cave of the Patriarchs massacre. In 2015, Ben-Gvir attended a notorious, quote, wedding of hate in the West Bank. At this wedding of hate, the murder of Palestinians was celebrated, including the murder of a Palestinian infant. It's sick. Now, in January, it seems like 100 years ago, but it was only 10 months ago.
So, is this the part where you realize, Jake Tapper, that Israel is everything that they told you Hamas was? Everything they told you Hamas is that Hamas celebrate dead Israeli babies. They want us dead. Hamas will want us dead. Meanwhile, Israel actually kills people. They have Jewish terrorists actually killing people. 200 dead in the West Bank, dead because of Jewish terrorism. But you guys think that Israel has the moral high ground over Hamas? Hamas, who actually have a legal argument to arm resistance against their criminal apartheid state, you guys think Israel is better than Hamas? You guys know how ridiculous that is? And Tapper, he won't ever say that, but he coming to the realization that, man, nigga, I'm supporting some Hamas shit myself.
I asked Prime Minister Netanyahu about these two anti-Arab racists, these extremists in his government. You have appointed some individuals, controversial figures, not part of your party, including ultranationalists Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir.
They joined the Likud. I didn't join them.
Right.
And I direct policy. I'm governing. I've got my two hands on the wheel, and believe me, it's going to be a good direction.
Smotrich just called himself a fascist homophobe. He suggested same-sex marriage is like incest. The former deputy director of Shin Bet said he was a Jewish terrorist, that he tried to stage an event when the Gaza pullout was going on. And the other day he was saying that he was putting out these horrible conspiracy theories. You must have seen this about the Shin Bet and the assassination of Rabin. I mean, these seem like rather extreme individuals.
Yeah, well, a lot of people say a lot of things when they're not in power, and they sort of temper themselves when they get into power, and that's certainly.
But isn't that the criticism of Hamas? Now, what he's saying is a lie, by the way. They still say crazy stuff when they're in power. But he had elected officials that called for carpet bombing Gaza. There was people in the Lucky Party that called for a completely annexing Gaza, was something that even the most extreme Zionists like Anthony Blinken in the United States opposed. They opposed Israel annexing Gaza. They want to keep it as an open-air prison. But the Luckett Party, the extreme far-right party that Benjamin Netanyahu run, not only do they call for annexing Gaza, they call for essentially having a genocide. And they said that the international community is too unfair and that we need to kill as many Palestinians as possible in order to have a one Israeli Jewish state. That is the stated goal of the Luckett Party, but they keep telling you how extreme Hamas is? Then they tell you that what Hamas believe? They say that we must be down with bombing hospitals and bombing kids because Hamas say the same thing that officials in the Luckett Party says in Israel. Do you guys see how this is ridiculous? I don't even have to argue against the premise because I would actually push back against the premise that Hamas is anything like Israel. There are people that was in Gaza, like Max Blumenthal, Dan Cohen, Jewish people. Dan Cohen explained how Hamas protected him because he was Jewish. So if I want to get real in the weeds with you guys, I will reject the premise that Hamas is anything like Israel, based on what their 2017 charter says as well. But even if Zionists lie so much, they have a lie within a lie. You guys saw it with Finkelstein and Max Blumenthal. You can't even take time to bury the lie within the lie. Sometimes you gotta set the premise and then explain how even with their premise, they're still full of shit. So the premise that Hamas are radicals, that we must justify the killing of babies and kids because they're so evil, that premise I reject because you guys see Israel like that. But even if your premise was correct, doesn't Hamas or anyone have the right to kill Israelis based on what Luckett officials say? So they take the most extreme statements of Hamas because I'm sure, like any organization, they got extremes. I'm sure there's someone in Hamas that says something about Jewish people that I wouldn't agree with. I'm sure that's just the reality of humanity. But what the corporate media and the Israelis and what the United States does, they take random statements from Hamas people and say, oh my God, look how evil Hamas is. We must bomb babies because they're so evil. But I think you guys see enough. I want to keep this to around 2 hours. So this is the last thing I'm going to show you guys for today. You guys seen CNN's odd takedown. It's an odd takedown. You never seen CNN and BBC go after Israel like that. But despite everything that was shared in this video, despite Israel and the United States being isolated on the world stage, you have one of the most ardent Zionists in Congress for the last 40 years who is remaining stubborn. Remember how the progressive left sold out Palestinians under a devil's bargain that they're going to get progressive domestic agenda that never came? They voted for John Fetterman selling out Palestinians because they got the idea was that you get good domestic policy, but let's sell out Palestinian people. Let's sell out black people in exchange for doing that. But they're not even getting that. Remember how Joe Biden said that Xi Jinping was a dictator? Meanwhile, Xi Jinping is a dictator. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is still strongly defending not having a ceasefire. Even though 80% of your own party want a ceasefire. You have 33 congresspeople, including the first Jewish congressperson that came out in support of a ceasefire. Here are the lists. Thanks, Prim, thinking for this. Here are the 33 members of Congress that back a ceasefire. You have 80% of the voter base in the Democratic Party calling for this. 33 of the most progressive in the party that calling for this. But despite that, Biden is still strongly defending the idea of not having a ceasefire. But you guys think Biden thinks that Xi is a dictator? This is what a dictatorship looks like, fam. You guys know words mean stuff? Words have meaning. This is what a dictator is. Someone who dictates policy despite what anyone else says. Joe Biden issued strident defense of refusal to call for ceasefire in Gaza. The United States president argued Hamas has said it will not stop attacking Israel and said he is mildly hopeful of a hostage deal. I don't know. Maybe one of the reasons why Hamas won't stop attacking Israel because they stole their goddamn land. Maybe one reason why Hamas won't stop attacking Israel is because they got 5,000 Palestinian prisoners. And I know the quote that Biden is talking about. one of the quotes that came from one of the Hamas leaders is, "We won't stop attacking Israel until we get all our hostages and prisoners free." So Israel attacked Gaza because Hamas stole hostages, and that's bad. But now Hamas saying they won't stop attacking Israel until they get all the hostages. Now that's bad. Does it sound like people who are in the right? When you have the Democratic Party that says peace in Ukraine benefits Putin, when you have the Democratic Party and Joe Biden that's saying a ceasefire benefits Hamas, why is it that every time that there's peace talks, it benefits your enemy? If you constantly find yourself on the wrong side of peace, you are the terrorist. You are in the wrong. Good news, at least Biden's fucked, but shows how diehard Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden as are Zionists, which is why it's completely absurd. I've seen right-wingers that pretend that Joe Biden is not doing enough for Israel. Jesus Christ. Name one senator that's been more pro-Israel in his entire life than Chuck Schumer or Joe Biden. They are the two leading Zionists in our government for decades. Every Israel atrocity Joe Biden has already been complicit with. So to me, it never made any sense for Arabs to ever support Biden. But thank God it's over now. In Michigan, where every vote counts, Arab Americans are turning away from Biden. And not only that they're turning away, and I explained this before, they're actively campaigning against Biden to get as many people not to support Biden as possible. So not like, oh, we quit, and not like nihilism. Oh no, they're organizing to get people outside the Democratic Party. The chant was Biden, Biden, you can hide. We charge you with genocide. We are witnessing the end of the duopoly era. We're going to enter an era of the third party, the multi-party system here very soon because the Democrats are toast. I have a personal theory that one of the reasons why the right wing lost their mind, one of the reasons why they completely abandoned free speech, the reason why Trump had to immediately come out and say that if he's president, he will ban all Muslims and deport Palestinians, even though he don't have the legal right to do that, because they play a game, bro. Like, Democrats fucked up so bad. They lost so many young people that Republicans have to compensate because Republicans are supposed to be the extreme party. So now you got Trump saying, we will deport all Palestinians. You got Republicans saying that we got to ban speech. They are struggling to find a way to compensate for how badly the Democrats fucked up, if that makes sense. So now the Republicans doing their job have to double down and become even crazier. Why do you think they become crazier on the culture war? Why do you think they obsess over trans people and all this bullshit now? Because they had to overcompensate for how horrible Biden is. We told you first at RBN that the anti-woke shit that the right wing will not land as well as people think it will. And what happened? Republicans fucking botched and choked away the last two elections. They were supposed to have a wave in the off-year election this year. The same way they're supposed to be a red wave in 2022. They didn't because Republicans engaged in the culture war when all they had to do was be anti-war. They had to just pretend to care about the workers, but instead of doing something basic, they punted the ball and became an insane culture warrior party because they had to. They had to do that because if they actually did market themselves as a pro-worker, anti-imperialist, serious party, then all of a sudden the Democrats would take massive, massive losses, and they can't have that. The duopoly only works when there's an even scale. President this year, Republican, Democrat next time. Republican this time, Democrat this time. That flow is crucial to how the duopoly works. Do you guys think it's a coincidence that it's been that way my entire life? We had George Sr., a Republican. Then we get a Democrat, Bill Clinton. Then we get a Republican, George Jr. Then we get a Democrat, Barack Obama. Then we get a Republican, Trump. And then we get a Democrat, Biden. That is very, very important. And that's my personal theory on why the Republican Party abandoned free speech. They abandoned being anti-war because they got to help Democrats because of this. They got to do everything they can to turn out as many people. And trust me, I'm happy about it. I'm happy whenever anyone leads a duopoly. But they got to rack up their rhetoric to help the Democrats not completely get their ass beat. And that's what they did when they choked away 2020, 2022, and 2020 and this last election. But my analysis is it won't help them in 2024 because of this, because of the Israel thing. But who knows? Who cares about whether my prediction right is on electoral politics? So let me read the last two super chats I seen come in, and we gotta wrap it up. We had a 2-hour mark. I timed that pretty well. Not really, because I went an hour longer than I planned. But anyway, thank you for the membership. Also, big dub for Name My Taco. Gifted 5 memberships. So big shout out to Taco. Give them a big dub in the chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thank you for the $2. Macharius for the 2, I think, Canadian bucks. Niggas on fire today. I love it. I love you guys. I hope you guys enjoy this. I'm tired. I was doing a lot of yelling, a lot of ranting for 2 hours. So I'm very tired, as you guys see. So I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. Hope you guys enjoyed the 2-hour rant session. I had to jump on here without guests every once in a while, just so I can do a good old-fashioned 2-hour rant session, because that is what deeply sane people do, right? Only the most sane person can rant about imperialism and war crimes for 2 hours. That's what we do. I'm not okay, but it's all right. Hope you guys enjoy the stream. Have a good weekend, my friends.